Welcome to the CS Roundup with Russell and Jan. I am Russell.
And I'm Jan.
Great. And this week we're going to talk about quiet quitting. So normally we don't really reveal when we're recording these, but I think it's relevant now to say that we're recording this at the end of September in 2022. And there's been this topic of quiet quitting that's been trending. We feel it's probably going to be a term that's out there for a while, and so we thought we'd do a show on it. Jan, I'd love to hear your thoughts about what you think quiet quitting is and how we should handle it professionally.
Well, I think quiet quitting. I'm of a couple different minds of it. Obviously, it came about from sort of a TikTok video, and I think there were some people who were, um, I, I guess, proud or of being mediocre at their job. It was kind of what it was about, and like sort of espousing how to um, be basically pretty mediocre. And I guess there's a lot of people who really they're not passionate about what they do, right? So if and they're just doing it for the dollar, and so they check in at 9 and they check out at 5, and so there's certainly have always been that element, and people who sort of just get done what you tell them to do. They're not really trying to be imaginative, they're not trying to take it to the next level, they're just getting it done. And so I think there is certainly that. There are those folks who if you're going to define it that way, then I think there are others who have taken this term and sort of use it more in the sense of, I know I'm completely burnt out in this job, and they are not treating me well, and I need to look for another job. And so until I find that other job, I'm going to do the bare minimum. And they're sort of doing that sort of quiet quitting in that respect. So um, then again, like, even though there's this new term for it, like, that's always existed too. Like, I don't think that any of these are like brand new ideas. So yeah,
So
I
there
don't know
was
your
there
thoughts.
was for anybody who used to read Dilbert way back in the day, there was a story arc where somebody that worked at Dilbert's office completely stopped doing anything at work as an experiment to see how long it would take to get fired. I actually have had a coworker who basically did this, and it took over 6 months, I think.
Yeah.
And to me, I don't know who coined the term quiet quitting. To me, that would be quiet quitting. I'm kind of with the people
All
on
out
this one.
stopping? You mean
Just,
just stopping?
yeah, and just sort of pretend and play the game.
Yeah.
So the accepted definition that I've started to see of what quiet quitting is exactly what you said, which is people who basically just do exactly their job description. They do it 9 to 5. They don't fall short, but they're not getting ahead either. I kind of don't see what's wrong with that. I don't see how, if you do exactly what your job description is, that means that you're falling behind. And I don't think that's quitting your job. And I don't think that's giving your employer grounds to terminate you. So I think it's a poorly coined phrase, but I do think it's a recognition of, look, there is burnout. It's still real. There are a lot of parts of the pandemic that aren't over. We're still all figuring out how to work from home. And what I have noticed is that I don't know how this is related to quiet quitting exactly. Some employers have said, well, listen, because you're not commuting, you should spend more time working, which is a funny way of admitting that all along the commute is part of work.
Hmm. I don't know. I think that there's lots of ways in which some companies will abuse their workers and
Hmm.
make kind of crazy demands. Um, so it doesn't surprise me that they'll want a 10-hour day instead of an 8-hour day. I mean, in a way, ever since, we started working from our phones and things like that, we've been kind of working 24/7,
That's right.
So I think that it's okay for someone to say, look, the world is not going to blow up if I don't respond to your email, after 5 o'clock. So yeah, I think it's okay to have those boundaries,
So
and
maybe that's what quiet quitting is. Maybe we should recoin it, right? And say, look, because of so much remote working, these barriers are taken down, and now I do need to reset some boundaries, and so I'm going to turn off my phone at 5, and that's just how it's going to be. But from 9 to 5, I'm all yours.
Right, but except for you're not really turning off your phone because it is also your personal phone,
Right,
right? But
right.
and I think that that's kind of what's happening is that people are, because then there's also this term, quiet firing, which I've also seen a lot of, where you make a point of letting an employee know that they're not going to move up, that they're not going to get more opportunity, that like lots of ways that you try to put them in a corner and make them do something that that they don't want to do, and all of these things where you want them to basically quit, right? But
Right,
you're not actually firing them.
right.
So like I mean, basically I think all of these terms are just pointing out that there's some unhealthy demands and expectations that are out there in the workplace, and that we also just don't have a lot of very good management training either.
Mm,
And so and then in the end, there's a lot of companies that don't quite know how to, even if they've decided they want to move on, and like have somebody, like they do want to let go of somebody, that they don't have a way of doing that properly either. So
right,
it's a pretty sad state of affairs that we have this as a term, and that people have ascribed so many different meanings to it.
right. So as we were preparing for this episode, I was thinking about, well, what could we do? What could we suggest to people? And I think you nailed it when you back a couple minutes ago when you said people are working 10-hour days, they're
Yeah.
overloaded. I think that individual contributors and leaders are feeling overworked. I feel like companies are not able to strip some of that work away because there's just simply work to be done. So what's the solution? And I just think that the solution really is you have to map out a good customer journey. I think that there's a lot of excess work that people do that's not part of a journey that they feel like they have to. Maybe it's urgent and not important, quadrant type work.
Sure.
And if you were really to ask an individual contributor or a leader, why is this person doing this work? They may not have a great answer. And so it really has to be a top down, let's think through what we really need to do to thrive as a business and turn that into a task list for somebody to do and give them the liberty to do that list and not feel like they're obligated to go outside of that in really time consuming ways. I just don't think most companies have mapped that out.
Most companies have not mapped out a customer journey. That is true. And I think when you get down to it, in most ways, we believe that the foundation and the starting point is the customer base segmentation and the customer journey that derives from it, and all of the things that derive from there. And so, yeah, in the end, it comes back to the foundation.
All right. Well, I think that is our time for this week. Thanks for joining us on the CS Roundup with Russell and Jen. I will see you next time.
See you next time.
All right.
Bye.